Adrian Vale stood at the bedroom doorway, watching his wife Nadia move through her nightly routine with mechanical precision. 3 months had passed since she'd last allowed him close. 3 months of turned backs and whispered excuses, of intimacy replaced by polite distance. "I'm exhausted," she'd say, or "Not tonight, Habibi." He believed her at first. Nadia worked long hours at the architectural firm, her projects demanding and endless. But exhaustion didn't explain the way she flinched when he touched her shoulder, or how she'd started sleeping in the guest room twice a week, claiming his snoring kept her awake. Adrian had never been a suspicious man. In 7 years of marriage, trust had been their foundation, built carefully through shared dreams and late-night conversations in their Dubai apartment. But lately, that foundation felt like sand beneath his feet. He found the medical folder by accident, tucked beneath a stack of design portfolios in her home office. His hands trembled as he read the diagnosis: premature ovarian insufficiency, advanced stage. The endocrinologist's notes were clinical and devastating: fertility declining rapidly, conception unlikely within 12 months without intervention. The date on the report was 2 months old. 2 months she'd been carrying this alone. 2 months of silence while she built walls between them, brick by brick. That evening, Nadia came home with an unusual brightness in her dark eyes. She'd stopped at the market, purchasing ingredients for his favorite meal: lamb nakbous with saffron rice, dishes she hadn't cooked in months. "I've been thinking," she said over dinner, her voice carrying a forced lightness that made his chest ache. "Maybe it's time we tried for a baby." Adrian set down his fork, studying her face. The urgency beneath her casual words was palpable, a desperation she couldn't quite hide. Her fingers twisted the napkin in her lap, and he noticed how thin she'd become, how shadows had settled beneath her eyes. "A baby," he repeated softly. "Yes." She met his gaze, and he saw fear there, raw and unmistakable. "I want us to start trying, now." Adrian already knew why. He'd known since he'd read that medical report, understanding finally clicking into place. The distance, the refusal, the walls. She wasn't pulling away because she'd stopped loving him. She was pulling away because she was terrified of losing everything. That night, Nadia approached him for the first time in months. Her movements were calculated, almost clinical, as she slipped into their bedroom wearing the silk nightgown he'd bought her last anniversary, still bearing its tags until tonight. Adrian watched her cross the moonlit room, his heart breaking with each graceful step. This wasn't desire, this was desperation wearing intimacy's mask. "Nadia," he whispered as she reached for him. "Please," she breathed against his neck, her hands already working at the buttons of his shirt. "I need this. I need you." But her touch felt wrong, urgent and empty, missing the tenderness that had always defined them. When she kissed him, her lips trembled and he tasted salt. She was crying. Adrian caught her wrists gently, stopping her frantic movements. "Habibti, what's happening?" "Nothing's happening." She tried to pull away, but he held her carefully. "I just want my husband. Is that so strange?" "After 3 months of barely looking at me?" "Yes, Habibi, it is." Nadia's composure cracked. She sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. "I thought I could do this. I thought if we just tried now, maybe." Adrian sat beside her, maintaining a careful distance despite every instinct screaming to pull her close. Maybe what? She was silent so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Maybe we'd still have a chance." A chance at what? He kept his tone gentle, though he already knew. He needed her to say it, needed her to stop carrying this alone. "Everything." The word broke on a sob. "Children, family, the future we always talked about." Adrian's throat tightened. "And you thought you had to face that possibility alone? Without me?" "I couldn't burden you with it." Nadia wiped her eyes roughly. "You married me believing we had all the time in the world.
I didn't want to trap you with my broken body and impossible timelines." "Trap me?" Adrian finally touched her then, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "Ya Ruhi, you're my wife, my partner. How could sharing your pain ever be a trap?" She turned to him, moonlight catching on her tears, and Adrian saw the full weight of what she'd been carrying. Alone, terrified, convinced her medical reality would destroy their marriage.
"I found the medical report," Adrian said quietly, and Nadia's entire body went rigid beside him. "2 weeks ago, in your office, I wasn't snooping. I was looking for the contractor's plans for the kitchen renovation." Nadia pulled her hand from him, standing abruptly. "So you've known? This whole time you've known and said nothing?" "I was waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me yourself." Adrian rose too, facing her across the space she'd created between them. "I kept hoping you'd realize you didn't have to face this alone." "Face what, exactly?" Her voice turned sharp, defensive. "The fact that my body is failing? That I'm 29 years old and already running out of time? That the future you imagined with me is disappearing?" "The future I imagined with you," Adrian said carefully, "was never dependent on your ovarian reserve or fertility statistics. It was dependent on you, on us, together." Nadia laughed bitterly. "Easy to say now, but when you married me, you wanted children. We talked about 3, maybe 4, a house full of noise and chaos and love. How do I give you that when my own body won't cooperate? So instead you gave me silence, distance, 3 months of sleeping alone and wondering what I'd done wrong?" Adrian's own frustration finally broke through. "You made me a stranger in my own marriage, Nadia. Not because of your diagnosis, because of your fear." She flinched as if struck. "I was protecting you. From what? From loving you through difficulty? From being the partner I promised to be?" He stepped closer, and this time she didn't retreat. "You decided alone that I couldn't handle this. You decided alone that our marriage couldn't survive it. You never gave me the choice." "Because I've seen marriages fall apart over less. My cousin, Layla, her husband left when they discovered she had endometriosis, said he didn't sign up for fertility treatments in disappointment. What if you—" "I'm not him," Adrian cut her off, his voice firm but gentle. "And you're not Layla. We are us, Nadia, and we don't get to decide for each other what we can or cannot handle." The fight drained from her suddenly, leaving only exhaustion. "I'm scared, Adrian. I'm so scared."
"Tell me what you're scared of," Adrian said, guiding Nadia back to the bed. This time when they sat, he pulled her close, and she didn't resist. "All of it. No more protecting me." Nadia rested her head against his shoulder, her body finally relaxing into his familiar warmth. "I'm scared that if we try and fail, you'll resent me. I'm scared that fertility treatments will consume our lives, our savings, our joy, our marriage. I'm scared that even if we do everything right, my body still won't cooperate. And the distance? The refusing intimacy?" She closed her eyes, shame coloring her words. "Every time we were intimate, I thought about the clock ticking, about eggs dying, about chances disappearing. It stopped being about us and became about this thing I couldn't control. I couldn't separate making love from making babies, and the pressure was suffocating me." Adrian pressed a kiss to her hair, understanding dawning. "So you stopped entirely. I thought if I created distance, it would hurt less when you eventually left. If I convinced myself I didn't need you, maybe losing you wouldn't destroy me." Her fingers traced patterns on his chest. "But it was destroying me anyway, just slower, more painfully." "I'm not going anywhere, Habibi." Adrian tilted her face toward his, making her meet his eyes. "Whether we have children or not, whether treatments work or fail, whether this takes 1 year or 10, I'm not going anywhere. You're not a vessel for babies. You're Nadia, the woman who laughs at terrible movies and cries during building dedications. who drinks her coffee too hot and stays up too late drawing impossible structures. That's who I married." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. What if wanting children isn't enough? What if we can't have them? Then we grieve that loss together, and we build a different, beautiful life together. There are many ways to create a family, Arohi, but there's only one you, and you're what I can't lose. Nadia kissed him then, not with the desperate urgency of earlier, but with the tenderness they'd been missing, soft and slow, relearning the shape of each other, remembering what intimacy felt like when it wasn't weighted with fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his lips. "I'm so sorry for shutting you out."
They stayed awake until dawn, talking in the way they hadn't in months. Nadia showed him all the research she'd done, the fertility clinics, the treatment options, the statistics that had been haunting her nights. Adrian listened, asked questions, held her when the numbers became too overwhelming. "We'll see the specialist together," he said, as morning light filtered through their curtains. "We'll hear the options together, make decisions together. No more solo missions, Habibi. We're a team." Nadia nodded, exhaustion and relief warring on her face. "And if it doesn't work, if the treatments fail, then we consider adoption, or fostering, or creating a life rich with nieces and nephews and meaning beyond biology." Adrian traced her jawline softly. "But first, can we agree to stop letting the future steal the present, to reclaim our intimacy as something sacred between us, not just a means to an end?" She turned fully into his embrace, her body fitting against his the way it always had, perfectly, inevitably. "I want that. I want us back." Their lovemaking that morning was different from the desperate attempt of the night before. It was slow and tender, filled with whispered confessions and gentle touches. Adrian worshipped each inch of her skin, reminding her without words that she was loved, diagnosis and all, fears and all, exactly as she was. Nadia cried again, but this time from relief rather than sorrow, her walls finally crumbling as she let him back in, let herself be vulnerable, be held, be loved through her uncertainty. Afterward, tangled in sheets and morning light, Adrian said, "Whether we have one child or 5 or none, Nadia, you are enough. We are enough. Don't forget that again. I'll try, with you helping me remember." 3 months later, they sat in the fertility specialist's office, hands clasped together as they listened to treatment options. The road ahead was uncertain, potentially difficult, expensive, and emotionally draining. But they faced it together, no longer divided by silence and fear. That night, as Nadia fell asleep in their bed again, shared and safe, Adrian held her close and thought about love, how it wasn't really tested by easy joys, but by the courage to face hard truths side by side. And they had that courage now. Finally, they had that courage. The end.